Today, perhaps more than ever, many women are taught to believe that when the body becomes quiet, something must be missing. That silence means emptiness, loneliness, or some kind of emotional failure. But what if the truth is completely different? What if that silence is actually the soul speaking for the very first time? When a woman consciously or unconsciously decides to step away from the endless chase for desire and the shallow forms of affection that the world keeps placing in front of her, something far deeper begins to awaken inside. It is not proof of absence. It is proof of presence. It is not a lack, it is an expansion. The energy that once moved outward begins to move inward. And suddenly she starts noticing things she could not hear before. There is an important shift happening here, and most people completely misunderstand it. When energy that has been focused on immediate pleasure is no longer constantly being released outward, the inner world begins to become louder. Thoughts become clearer. Feelings become easier to recognize. Intuition may feel stronger. Dreams may become more vivid. A woman may begin to notice patterns in her life that she once ignored. And this is where the transformation truly begins. Have you ever noticed how after a period of distance, solitude, or choosing not to pursue romantic attention, some women describe feeling strangely awake? They may feel more connected to themselves, more aware of their emotions, and more interested in questions they never had time to ask before. This is not necessarily random. Sometimes the silence itself becomes the doorway. And once that door opens, there is no going back to the same version of yourself. When the outside world becomes quieter, the inner world finally gets room to speak. So keep listening, because this is where the deeper change begins. This is not simply about celibacy, abstinence, or deciding to stay away from relationships. It is much bigger than that. It is about transformation. It is about taking the energy that once searched for meaning, comfort, approval, or identity through another person, and allowing that same energy to build something within yourself. For so long, many women are encouraged to measure their worth through attention. Who wants her? Who chooses her? Who messages her? Who desires her? Who is willing to stay? These questions can quietly become the center of her emotional world without her even realizing it. But when she steps away from that cycle, something powerful happens. She begins to ask a different question. What do I want? Who am I when nobody is validating me? What remains when I am not trying to impress, attract, please, or hold on to someone? Those questions can feel uncomfortable at first, but they can also become deeply freeing. We live in a culture that constantly encourages people to seek validation through attraction, attention, and desire. That is why a woman who chooses to withdraw from that constant cycle can become difficult for others to understand. She becomes less predictable. She becomes harder to manipulate. She becomes less dependent on emotional reactions. She no longer needs every interaction to prove that she is valuable, and that changes everything. She may begin to recognize emotional games before they pull her in. She may notice repeated relationship patterns that once felt normal. She may see the difference between genuine connection and attention that only looks like love. And here is the part many people overlook. The moment she stops waiting for someone else to choose her, she begins choosing herself. That is when her inner world starts becoming stronger than the noise around her. And once she reaches that point, the way she sees love, desire, relationships, and even herself can change completely. She no longer needs to be loved by someone else just to feel worthy of love. She learns to love herself so deeply that everything false begins to disappear on its own. There is a kind of silence that does not mean emptiness. It feels sacred, almost like entering a private temple within yourself. When the body becomes still, it is not weakness. It can be the soul gathering itself, preparing to awaken a light strong enough to challenge old patterns and reveal what has been hidden. A woman who lives without sex or relationships is not necessarily empty inside. In many cases, she may feel more alive than she has felt in years. What appears to be absence can actually be a powerful form of inner presence. What looks like loneliness can become a deep connection with something that no temporary passion could ever provide. In that quiet space, the wild and instinctive part of a woman begins to awaken. It is the part that remembers her natural wisdom, trusts her deepest instincts, and carries a feminine strength that does not need an audience to prove that it exists. Can you feel that shift? This calling is not meant for everyone. It is for the woman who has become tired of giving pieces of herself away for brief moments of connection that never truly satisfy her. It is for the woman who finally understands that what she has been searching for may not be waiting in another person's arms, but inside the deepest meeting with her own soul. And if you are still here, still listening, perhaps you are closer to that awakening than you realize. Stay with this thought, because the next part goes even deeper. The body's silence is not weakness. It is strength pulling inward, gathering itself, becoming something more powerful. Because once a woman begins to hear her own inner voice, she cannot easily return to the life she once accepted. A woman who has truly heard her soul will no longer be satisfied with the quiet, shallow version of love that once seemed normal. There comes a moment in many women's lives when the noise of the world becomes too heavy to carry. Not always the sound outside, but the quiet confusion inside. The expectations she never created for herself. The desires she was taught to believe were her own. The ideas about love she inherited from family, culture, relationships, and society, as if those stories were unquestionable truths. And it is often during that deep inner exhaustion, a struggle that nobody else can see, that her real journey back to herself begins. She starts questioning everything. What do I actually want? What have I been doing simply because I was taught to do it? Which desires belong to me and which ones were placed inside me by the world? These questions can feel uncomfortable, but they can also open a door. When a woman stops running from herself and becomes willing to face what has been hidden inside, something begins to change. The quietness of the body is no longer experienced as a loss. It becomes a signal that something deeper is ready to emerge. The woman who slowly steps away from the impulses that once controlled her, even when she cannot fully explain why, may already be responding to an inner calling. It does not come from outside. It rises from within. She may begin to feel a strange longing that she cannot easily name. It is not necessarily a longing for a man, a relationship, or another moment of passion. It is a longing to return to herself, a longing to discover the inner home she has been searching for without realizing it. And this is where the real transformation begins. Abstinence does not have to be punishment. Distance does not have to mean rejection. Sometimes stepping away becomes a doorway. And when she walks through that doorway, she begins the long journey toward becoming whole. On this journey, she slowly stops placing all of her light onto other people and begins turning that light toward herself. For the first time, she starts seeing her own patterns with greater honesty. The emptiness she may feel in the beginning is not necessarily a permanent void. It can be the space being cleared so something more genuine can grow. Think about that for a moment. Sometimes what feels like emptiness is actually room. Room for awareness, room for healing, room for a new identity. In that open inner space, memories can return in a different way. Old relationships, painful moments, tears, disappointments, and repeated patterns may begin to look less like meaningless suffering and more like clues. She starts seeing connections she could not see before. She realizes why certain people attracted her, why certain situations repeated themselves, and why she kept accepting things that did not truly honor her. This is why a woman who chooses silence is not necessarily running away from life. She may be rebuilding her relationship with life from a clearer place. Her emotions become mirrors. Instead of immediately reacting to every feeling, she begins observing what that feeling is trying to reveal. She notices the fears that once controlled her. She recognizes the need for approval that once shaped her decisions. She hears the inner words that desire and distraction used to drown out. Slowly, something changes. She discovers that she does not need constant attention to know that she matters. She does not need applause to feel valuable. She does not need someone else's desire to confirm her worth. Her value becomes something she experiences internally. And when that happens, a different kind of power begins to appear. It is quiet. It does not need to announce itself. It does not chase. It does not beg. It simply stands there, steady and present. This is the power of a woman who no longer needs to be chosen because she has finally learned how to choose herself. And this is exactly where the world may begin to misunderstand her. Society often knows what to do with a woman who is constantly seeking approval, chasing affection, or trying to prove that she is desirable. But it becomes much harder to control a woman who no longer needs those things to feel complete. She becomes difficult to predict because she is no longer following the old script. She does not react simply because someone gives her attention. She does not remain where she feels unseen just because leaving feels uncomfortable. She does not confuse temporary chemistry with genuine connection. She becomes whole, and that wholeness can feel threatening to everything around her that still depends on insecurity and emotional dependence. When she finally realizes that her energy has not disappeared, but has simply become quiet, she enters a new kind of awareness. She becomes calmer, more centered, more observant. There is less urgency inside her. She no longer feels the constant need to prove something, chase something, or hold on to something that was never truly hers. And perhaps this is the part most people never understand. The body's silence is not necessarily punishment. It can become a language, a private language spoken between the woman and the deepest part of herself. A language that becomes clearer when the outside world becomes quiet. The more deeply she listens, the more she recognizes what her instincts have been telling her all along. She begins to understand that solitude can reveal what distraction hides. Stillness can expose what noise covers. And choosing herself can change the entire way she experiences love. So if you have ever wondered why your life suddenly became quieter, why certain desires lost their power, or why you no longer feel drawn toward the same things, do not immediately assume that something is wrong with you. Sometimes the quiet is not the ending. Sometimes it is the beginning. Sometimes the woman you are becoming needs silence before she can finally hear herself. This can be understood as a healing of the feminine inner world, a return to ancient symbols, forgotten instincts, and wisdom buried beneath generations of silence and suppression. And this reconnection does not happen through endless explanations. It happens through presence, through stillness, through simply being with herself. The woman who learns to turn her silence into strength and her solitude into sacred ground is only beginning to discover what is waiting inside her. But the journey is not always soft. It can bring restlessness, uncertainty, and a quiet ache that slowly grows from within. When a woman begins stepping away from quick desires, familiar touches, and the comfort of having another person beside her, She may also step away from the things that once gave her a feeling of belonging. At first, what remains can feel uncomfortable. There may be an unfamiliar emptiness, almost as if the world has stopped noticing her. She may wonder whether becoming less available has made her invisible. She may miss the attention she once received. She may question why she chose this path in the first place. But this discomfort can reveal something important. It can expose the hidden part of herself that spent years seeking approval, changing shape to fit other people's expectations, and becoming whatever she thought would make her accepted. Now that part is tired. It no longer wants to perform. It wants to be real. And this is where the difficult questions begin. Was stepping away a mistake? Am I wasting my time? Am I losing opportunities? Society constantly tells women that time is running out, that they must stay attractive, stay desired, stay available, and keep moving toward the next relationship or achievement. Suddenly, she may feel as though she belongs nowhere. She is no longer trying to be someone's lover, wife, girlfriend, or ideal image. She is simply herself. And strangely, that can hurt more than a breakup because there is no distraction left. Stay with this part because this is where the real transformation starts. For a while, choosing abstinence or distance may even feel like punishment, but it does not have to be punishment. It can become a test of awareness, a difficult passage between the woman she used to be and the woman she is becoming. Temptations appear, old habits return. Familiar invitations arrive at exactly the moments when she feels weakest. People from the past may suddenly appear again. Everything seems to ask one question. Will you return to the old version of yourself? The hardest part is that almost nobody around her understands what is happening. Friends may tell her to relax, meet someone, go out, or stop thinking so deeply. Family members may worry that she is becoming distant. But what looks like isolation from the outside may actually be immersion on the inside. She is not necessarily running away from life. She is going deeper into it, into parts of herself that she avoided for years. Not everyone understands what it means to dive beneath the surface while the rest of the world continues floating above it. During this stage, the ego can become restless because it feels that its old methods are no longer working. The part of her that once controlled everything through attention, attraction, approval, and emotional reassurance begins to panic. Meanwhile, something deeper starts becoming stronger. Many women turn back here. They return to familiar habits. They accept relationships that give them only half of what they need. They tell themselves that something shallow is better than nothing. And for a moment, that choice may feel easier. But the woman who stays with herself, even while crying, doubting, and questioning everything, is being shaped by a process she may not yet understand. She is being asked to break a cycle. And cycles are rarely destroyed through force. They change through awareness. The pressure she feels does not automatically mean she chose the wrong path. Sometimes pressure is simply evidence that an old identity is losing its grip. Think of the cocoon. Before the butterfly emerges, everything becomes tight and dark. That darkness is not the end. It is part of the becoming. Something new is being formed inside the quiet. Somewhere deep within, she knows this, even when she cannot explain it, even when she feels completely alone, even when nobody seems to notice what she is going through. There is a voice inside her that never completely disappears. It does not scream, it whispers, calmly, patiently, consistently. A quiet inner presence begins walking beside her, almost like a bridge between the part of herself she understands and the mystery she has not yet discovered. And through that inner presence, she begins learning how to communicate without needing constant noise. The deeper this private conversation becomes, the more she understands what her emotions have been trying to tell her. Her body is not necessarily frozen or empty. It may simply be in a period of deep transition. It is as though she has entered a personal ceremony that modern life rarely teaches anyone how to experience. The outside world says, hurry. Her inner world says, listen. The outside world says, find someone. Her soul says, first, find yourself. And slowly, something begins to shift. The restless energy becomes questions. The questions become awareness. She starts asking herself things she never had the courage to ask before. Why did I need to be desired to feel alive? Why did being alone make me so uncomfortable? Why did someone else's attention have so much power over how I saw myself? What part of me still believes I only exist when someone else is looking at me? These questions may hurt, but they also reveal the truth. The woman who chooses silence is not necessarily escaping life. She may be rewriting her story from a place that belongs entirely to her. Her emotions become symbols. Her reactions become mirrors. Her memories become clues. Instead of immediately running from uncomfortable feelings, she begins watching them. And what she sees can be astonishing. She begins recognizing patterns that once controlled her without her awareness. She sees where she abandoned herself for approval. She notices where she confused attention with love. She understands where she accepted less because she feared having nothing. And slowly, the need for outside validation begins to weaken. Little by little, she realizes she does not need the applause she once depended on. She does not need constant attention to know she matters. She does not need to be desired by countless people to understand her value. Her worth begins coming from something deeper than appearance, attraction, or another person's approval. It comes from her ability to remain present with herself even in silence. And at that exact point, another kind of power begins to appear. It is not loud, it does not demand attention, it does not need to prove anything. It is quiet, steady, and difficult to shake. This is the strength of a woman who no longer needs someone else to choose her because she has finally learned to choose herself. And this is where the world may begin to react differently to her. She can no longer be easily controlled through promises, affection, attention, or temporary closeness. She does not automatically respond when someone offers her a little validation. She has learned to recognize the difference between genuine connection and emotional bait. She becomes harder to manipulate because she is no longer desperate to be loved at any cost. The world often knows how to deal with someone who is constantly seeking approval. It becomes much less comfortable with someone who has stopped begging for it. She becomes whole, and wholeness can expose everything that still depends on insecurity, fear, and emotional dependence. As this awareness grows, she understands something important. Her energy has not disappeared. It has not died. It has not become useless. It has simply stopped being scattered. It is gathering inside her, waiting for direction. She enters a calmer state of being. There is less urgency, less hunger to prove herself, less need to chase what keeps moving away. She begins to understand that the quietness of the body is not necessarily punishment. It can be a language, a private and sacred language that becomes understandable only when someone is willing to go deeply inward. And the woman who turns her solitude into sacred ground is only beginning to rise. The path will not always be smooth. The uneasiness may return in waves. The old ache may appear again, but now she knows what it is. She no longer has to fear every uncomfortable feeling. She can sit with it. She can listen. She can learn. And that changes everything. Because once a woman learns that she can remain whole, even when nobody is giving her attention, she has crossed a line she cannot easily uncross. The silence that once frightened her can become the very place where her deepest strength begins. Each time she steps back from the rush of desire, from familiar contact, from the warmth and comfort of another person's body, she also steps away from everything that once made her feel that she belonged somewhere. And once again, that raw discomfort appears. It can feel as if the world has stopped noticing her, as if leaving the endless game of attraction has erased her from view. The same hidden part of her that once depended on approval now begins demanding something different: honesty. At this stage, she starts questioning everything again. Did I make the wrong choice? Am I being foolish? Am I wasting something important? The world keeps sending the same warnings. Time is moving. Keep going. Keep searching. Keep being wanted. But she no longer fits comfortably into those old roles. She is not trying to be someone's lover, wife, muse, or fantasy. She is simply herself, standing alone in her own presence. And yes, that can hurt deeply. Abstinence may once again feel like punishment, but it is not necessarily punishment. It can become a difficult passage, a test that reveals what still controls her from within. Old patterns begin calling her back. Easy choices appear. Familiar doors suddenly open. People and situations from the past may return when she is most uncertain. But slowly, she begins to understand that every challenge can carry a lesson. Every temptation can reveal a weakness that still needs attention. Every moment of doubt can show her where she has not yet become free. And the woman who stays, who continues listening even when the process becomes uncomfortable, is already changing into someone she has never been before. Everything seems determined to test her, yet perhaps that is exactly why this stage matters. Stay with this idea, because the hardest part is often the part that changes you the most. The most difficult thing is that very few people around her understand what is really happening. Friends may question her choices. They may tell her to go out more, meet someone, relax, or stop spending so much time alone. Family members may believe she is isolating herself, but she knows the difference. She is not simply hiding from life. She is becoming deeply immersed in her own inner world. And not everyone is willing to watch someone dive beneath the surface while they continue moving across it. From the outside, it may look like withdrawal. From the inside, it can feel like discovery. This is the stage where the part of her that always wanted control begins to become uncomfortable. The old identity starts realizing that it cannot use attention, affection, attraction, or approval in the same way anymore.